Welcome to Blue Koala Office Solutions. We are here to help you grow with competitive rates and reliable sources, allowing you to expand and develop in an efficient way. Why do you need a virtual office address? Perhaps you're working from home but don't want to use your home address. You may be an expanding business and are looking to attract businesses in Newport and or Cardiff. Are you looking for an address you can register with Google and SEO for flexible short-term agreements, fibre, 24-hour security, meeting room for up to 6 people? We are located in Whitchurch Castles from M4 and A, as well as the meeting room, a car studio and a film studio on an hourly basis. We have created a hidden gem where businesses can come together to brainstorm a professional environment. So if you would like to find out more, info@bluekoala.com. Hello and welcome to an incredible live with one of my favorite people in the world, of course, Beverly Jones from Awaken. So Beverly, you have had an amazing journey recently with a relaunch and lots of new stuff going on. So we're going to be talking about that. But first of all, just for people who've been under a rock and don't know who you are and what you do, please just introduce yourself.
Well, I'm Bev Jones and I run a company called Awaken, and I run it for the last 12 years, which is just incredibly mad, really, because it doesn't feel like 12 years.
Successful, I would call it.
It is successful, yeah, it's successful, but it's like you get to that point where you think, I can't actually go and apply for any startup awards anymore, and you're like, okay, then maybe I'm not starting.
Do they do lifetime award like they do on Brits Awards and things?
That's it. Yeah, I could get like a president's award or a lifetime award, or loads of things like that. But yeah, it's been 12 years, and in those 12 years I've just been helping people to basically not go where I went, which was through burnout. And I've done that in all sorts of ways, which I know we're going to talk about here. But that's basically what I do, is to not, help people not to go there, because it's not a nice place. And I turn my life around, and I hopefully help other people do the same. I think I do. Got quite a few testimonials that say I do. So
you certainly got a testimonial from myself as well. So that brings me on actually to how it all started and your book, which you wrote when you were in a really dark place. And having read the book, I want to go on to talk about why you wrote the book and why you thought it was important to share the book. So first of all, the book is called Made It Through the Rain. And I said, you've got it there. I've given away my copy to somebody who really needed it.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll give you your very own copy, because that was Jamie's copy. So I'll give you a signed copy, but all for your very self.
Jamie's copy has travelled, and I'm really pleased to say that it has, because people need the book out there. And if you've read it and you feel that you got somebody, and I actually know one of our other members who phoned me up, and her friend was in a really dark place and she didn't know what to do, and she got the book from you to give to her friend, and it helped him from suicide attempt. And that is how much the book can help people. So that's just one person that I know that you've helped, apart from myself. So tell us why you wrote the book and the experience of the book.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote the book back in 2012. So it's due another one now, really, 10 years on. But I wrote it because I'd been through burnout myself. I ended up going through burnout in 2009, 2010. And it wasn't just stress, and it wasn't just anxiety. It was the fact that I didn't think I wanted to be here anymore. I didn't think my life was worth it. I was self-harming. I was in a really bad, I wasn't I became an alcoholic, but I drank far too much, if that makes sense. So every night I'd reach for a glass of wine. I was eating junk food, and I just spiraled out of control life until I ended up at the doctors with clinical depression and severe anxiety brought on by burnout. And over that time, I kind of had to take a year out. I couldn't do anything else. I had to take a year out. Took a year to kind of, I would say, start recovering, because back then, I thought it would just take that time, but it didn't. It obviously took a lot longer in hindsight. I was on medication. I went for counselling. I did all that stuff. But I got chatting to somebody who said, you need to put it in a book. You need to tell people this story. You need to share it. You need to let people know what's going on. Well, at that time, I couldn't, and I just felt still in the mess that I was, I suppose. But in 2010, I started to awaken and started to turn and started to feel a bit better. I got into a new relationship in 2011. And when I got to 2012, things had really started to turn around. And I say started because it took a long time, as I said, but started to turn around. And at that point, I felt okay, which is what I did. And I wrote one was because it's a very long, I certainly felt like I was going through it, going to see that in their face and their emotion on it. Up with me, I realized that actually people out there don't know themselves that they're even going through it. So I kind of wanted to give a book or write a book that would let people go, God, it's not just me. It's okay not to be okay. I really am not the only person in the world feeling this way. So that was one reason. And the second reason was to give it to people who are living, who are living with you, your carers, your supporters, because there's a lot of misunderstanding about it. And I think it's very easy for people to say, oh, you'll be all right tomorrow, you'll get over it. And when you're living with somebody with it, it is a hard journey. And I thought if I write it and they read the book, they could see what it was really like, how it feels, what it's like, without hearing it from the person they're living with. Does that make sense? Because sometimes you can't talk the same. Whereas if you say, read this book, this is how I'm feeling, somebody else is explaining the story. So that was the two reasons really, to help both parties.
Yeah, and you know what? It's exactly like that. It's exactly what happened to me. So I was given the book by Jamie, and he could see signs of what was going on. I had no idea what I was going through. I had no idea that I was on the verge of signs to burnout. And I was given the book, and I do apologize for anyone listening in because there's some banging going on outside. So apologies. I'm not just hitting anything in the office. So, but by actually being given the book, I could then identify the signs that you talked about, the experience that you were going through, which is the way I kind of felt I was going into. I was one of the lucky ones because by being given the book, I recognized the signs, recognized my situation, and was able to take myself out of the situation I was in and move forward. And this is exactly like I was saying with one of the other members who gave a complete stranger to us, as Sina Bounds, but she contacted me, gave the book to somebody because she was just at her, she just didn't know what else to do to help this person. And I said, because the person like myself wouldn't have come to you as a mentor to talk to you, because I didn't actually know, like you said, I did not know that there was anything wrong. I thought it was just a bit of stress, and it just got too much and it will be okay soon. But actually it wasn't going to be okay soon. And it took me, I just working with myself and self-development of various kinds to be able to come back to having confidence, and which is something that, you struggle with, or it's challenging for a long time. And I think that's why the book is so incredible, because I wouldn't have gone to somebody to seek help. I would never have gone to the doctors. I didn't speak to any of my friends. Nobody knew what was happening inside me. And like you said, I thought I was the only person. I thought And I've always, like we've spoken about this, I've always felt like I've been the strong one in the family. I'm always the one that organizes things. I'm always the sort of smiley face outwards. So people didn't know that there was anything wrong. And that is so many people that's going through that. So I think it's an incredible book. And if you know somebody and you're listening into this, I think giving it as a gift to somebody when you see signs that might not be right, it's amazing, because it can really, really help someone, because it is raw and it's quite a dark place. And the book is very much something that you can connect with and realize what it's like to go through burnout.
Yeah. And that's it. That's exactly why I wrote it, was to help people recognize those things. And, as it says in the front, the anonymous quote says, depression isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of being strong for too long. And we all keep going. We all keep thinking, we'll be all right, be all right, be all right tomorrow. We'll have a bank holiday. That'll be all right now. So you have 4 days off. And you spend the 4 days dreading the Monday, because it's like, oh, really, or we might have one good day out of that 4. So yeah, it's just something that I really want to reach out to people and say, you're all right, you're okay. Together we can do this, we can break it and get it sorted out. So
with your own experience that you had, you said 2012 the business really started to take off. It must have been really hard in the beginning to have the strength and the confidence to set up a business when you're in a quite weak position. Not weak, but you're just a bit vulnerable. So how did that come about, and how did you start?
It came about because basically I said I'd never go and work for anybody ever again, because I was bullied in work. And that was the second, that was part of the whole burnout, and I was in a bad place and bad relationship, all of that. So it all kind of came together. And I thought, if I'm not going to work for anyone else, I'm going to have to work for myself. And then I read Sue Stone's book, Love Life, Live Life. And I thought, maybe I could, that's what I want to do. I want to empower other people. I want to be able to. So Trained as a Life, I set it up. And I'm not, I look at it now and I think, well, that was a bit of a crazy decision, really, to start a business when you're already, do you know what I mean? Thought it was the easy way, not going back to work for anybody. It was like, what are you doing? But yeah, I didn't want to work for anyone. So I never took part-time work. I never did anything. I just literally stuck at my business, and I stuck at it for 12 years now. It's all come together, but even now, obviously, we can talk about the rebranding. It's only recently that I've been able to go, hang on a minute, what the hell's been going on? Do you know what I mean? Because it takes a long time to get over it. It's not something you get over overnight. Even writing the book, publishing the book, doing all of that stuff didn't make it go away. Even the lovely life that I've got now with my new partner, with everything, doesn't take it away. It's still there, and it lived with me for a very long time. So
I think it's amazing. And I think the whole experience just shows what you can do for other people as well, to help other people, because you've gone through the journey. And it's not uncommon, because we obviously belong to a lot of different networks, and it's not uncommon journey that people from burnout, or just from sort of having been bullied at work, not necessarily going through burnout experience, but similar experience of signs of that, to open their own business. And one of it, I think, is the confidence of not being wanted and being scared of going for interviews. And are you going to be bullied again, and all those kind of feelings. So it's quite a journey that we come across quite a lot. I think that people kind of take the step to open their own business. So
not even in itself, you'll know, you've got your own business. It's not easy. You suddenly go from being, I was a senior manager in a corporate company. I was head of stations here in Wales, ran the whole kind of network with my managers and stuff. And I always had somebody to put the presentations together, or, do the marketing, all of that. But when you get into business and you've got your marketing, your accounts, your sales, all of those other things that you have to do apart from doing the work you want to do, which is the mentoring and all of that. It's all that background stuff that takes a while, I mean, I'm in a position now where I've got people to help me, to employ people to do systems and stuff. But back then I couldn't. I had to do it all myself. And so it's taken, it took a long time to kind of get that back and get my confidence. I didn't tell anyone. When people used to ask me why I'd left my job, I used to just say to people, I just wasn't well. And that was it, and left it at that. And a lot of people actually will never really say what was wrong, because they don't want to, because they don't want to open that can of worms. What could it be? It could be anything, couldn't it? So I found that was the easiest thing to say, was I wasn't well, so I left on ill health.
Yeah.
So it became a very easy excuse, and it's only really, I've noticed a massive difference in the last 12 years of being able to now talk about burnout, talk about mental health, talk about my suicide thoughts, talk about my self-harm. I was told by a friend back then, don't talk about it because you'll be judged. Don't mention it.
Yeah.
And that's very different. And that's only 12 years ago. That's not long.
No, I think it has changed. I think it's changed dramatically over the lockdown, because everyone became disabled from the world that we knew. Yeah. And everyone went through a journey in one way or another. And that's when mental health is really, and I really kind of think that that's one of the positives at what we've gone through, because we connect, we collaborate, and we research out and reach out to people. And that's often the thing that you don't do. But I want to come back into, because your journey, your experience have led you to a successful business where you are now. And you work really closely with business owners that have experience, perhaps. So they go through a process of setting up their own business, thinking that is going to be easy. And then a year down the line, 2 years down the line, you kind of hit something and you think, this is not as easy as I thought. So tell us about, how can you, as a mentor, help people and businesses, and what does it mean with the rebranding that you've done 12 years down the line to be able to kind of do what you want to do now in helping people?
Yeah, I mean, I decided back last year that I needed to rebrand, and I did it because I thought, do you know what? I've had enough of listening to this woman bully in my head telling me, you're not good enough, you're rubbish, you're the worst person we ever had. And I thought, no, I'm not. I had 30 years in a corporate career, to which I was running, large portions of businesses. I was managing 200 staff. I mentored people through various journeys through, I worked reporting at a director level. So I thought, hang on a minute, I need to be stepping into myself and getting back to where I was pre all that stuff. So back last year, I decided to rebrand. It's a very different brand. It's stronger. It's more businessy. It's whatever. And I pulled myself into where I think I'm probably most helpful, if you like. And that is in kind of 3 areas. I mean, I speak and I write. They just happen naturally anyway. But I do burnout mentoring, which basically is burnout groups for professional females, and that could be business owners or people that work in large corporates, whichever you fit in. If you're burning out, you're burning out. You could be a parent, you're burning out, you might need help in that. The Awaken Women's Entrepreneurs, and that's the group where obviously, but we've talked about, is where I help business owners to not only go through the stuff of setting up a business, the practicalities, the social media, why you need a website, all of those things, but also the mental health and the stress, what keeps you awake at night. And it's usually because I haven't got enough clients, am I going to be able to pay the rent, all of that stuff. And I help you through that. I help you look at different ways that you can do that. I help you through, let's have a look at where you can change your marketing, where you can change your social media. As you know, I've got a huge book of connections, massive book of connections. And I love connecting people. I can say to people, right, okay, you're looking to do this, speak to this person, speak to that person, join this network. I run networks myself, as you know, with 12 Vine Breakfast. So I'm all about helping other people, because again, when I was starting out, I couldn't afford help. I didn't know who to turn to. I didn't know who I could go help. Can you help me do this? I need help with this website. I didn't know any of that. And there's so many people out there who don't know that stuff. And I'm here to say, look, I learned all this, get to where I am today in a lot shorter time than I took.
And I think, and with the business entrepreneurs, it's so it's such a lovely group because people really do want to support each other. And it's not about networking or anything. Of course, that comes into it, but it's more about being able to be honest in the group of what you experience being challenges as well. And I think those groups are quite far between of the support that you can get, because you can get the support within networking, which is great. We both love networking. Obviously, we run an online community, which is also, but it's in a smaller group sometimes, I think, where you can really open up and say,
and you can really be honest
with you. And you can really,
you can cry. If you want to cry, you can cry. It's okay to cry in my group.
We've had all of it. So I know that you've got amazing things going on at the moment, but there is a particular seminar that's happening soon for people that have experienced all the things that we've been talking about. So tell us a little bit about the seminar, please, Beth.
It's called Recognizing the Path to Burnout. It's next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. It's a week today. It's free. It's on for an hour, 7 till 8 in the evening. So if you work in the day, you can come along. And it's basically me sharing my experience in depth about those 7 signs that you should be looking for, about help, about self-care, about, how just you can get help, you can help. It starts with you and all of that stuff. So that's what the seminar is really about. But it's about highlighting really the pathway to burnout and getting people to go, that's me. The amount of people that I've done, and I do public speaking. The amount of people that I've spoken to and have come up to me afterwards and said, because of you, I rang the doctor. Because of you, I reached out. Because of you, I spoke to my manager and got it sorted out. And that's job done for me. That's it. So,
it's job satisfactory at a different level, isn't it, really?
I mean, somebody said to me once about reoccurring clients, and I've got so many reoccurring clients because they've become friends, to be totally honest. Do you know what I mean? Once I get people in my network, I just stay there for people. I don't kind of, but in some respects, if my clients keep reoccurring and keep paying me time after time after time, I don't think I've done what I'm supposed to do. My aim is to get people to live life in flow, to live it much simpler, to understand what's going on for them, to, all of those things. And once you get to that point, maybe a year or so down the line, you might want to chat or whatever, or have a quick call, but you shouldn't want to go through it endless. People shouldn't need coaching 2 years on, continually, because surely you should be helping them move on. That's what I want to do. I want people to move on and to start enjoying their life and to get where, and stay. So
I think exactly, and I know that's kind of your aim. So I just want to touch on the seminar that you're running, because I know it's for. So is it for people that think they're going through burnout, or can it also be for people that might have a friend or a partner or a colleague that they think is going through burnout?
Anyone, like I said, I work with predominantly females now. But I do have a great colleague, a gentleman called Rob, who and he looks after the males that I meet. So if anybody's out there and you're a bit concerned that, I feel like that, but actually I'm a male and she only helps females, that's not the case on this call. The seminar is for everyone. Burnout is burnout, whether you're male or female. But I do work with a male coach who is there offering very similar help and support for people. So it can be anybody. It can be you can live with somebody you think might be going through it. You can work with somebody you might want to think about if they got it. So it's just about recognizing the signs for yourself, for other people, for work colleagues, for family. If you can come along and recognize the signs, then you're at a good starting point, really.
That's amazing. And to have that as a full webinar in the evening, I think is something that really people could take part of, whether you think you're going through it or whether you think somebody in your circle or family, colleague is going through something, or even if it's just a few signs. Because like we mentioned earlier, you've helped people, and I know that you've helped people just by giving, having the book to someone can really, really help somebody who is having all sort of hard thoughts of suicide attempt or anything that's going with the signs of burnout. So I really just want to say a massive, massive thank you, Beverly, for coming on the show, and sharing your experience as well, and sharing what you can help people with, because I've seen it so many times that people have started up and then get a little bit stuck and need that help and support to move forward. So yeah, massive, massive thank you to you. And I hope the seminar goes really well, and we would love to hear feedback. So we got a lovely comment that's just come in that I'm going to bring up. And Bev's mentoring group is well worth joining if you're starting a business or need some guidance, advice, or support from Bev and fellow members. It's a very supportive group of women, and I totally agree, Catherine. And I know
thank you, Catherine.
It is a group where you can totally be yourself, and what we say in the group kind of stays within the people that are members.
Yeah. No judgment. No,
exactly.
Nothing.
So that's what we're all about. So if you're watching this on replay and want to connect with Bev, she is part of cenobounce.co.uk. Where else can they find you, Bev?
If you check out my website, www.awakenmentoring.co.uk, you can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. If you are in business and you just want a friendly kind of group online, as well as obviously the See No Bounds community, hop on to the Awaken Business Club, because that's just a very interactive group of members. There's about 400 and something in it. But yeah, always happy for people to share things in there. So
fantastic. That's lovely. Thank you so much for coming on. And
that's okay. Thank you for inviting me.
Evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank
See
you.
you soon. Bye. Bye-bye. Bye.
And welcome to another very special feature day with the lovely Denise Little from the Mind Reset. This week is Stress Awareness Month, and we are going to be talking about anxiety. We've covered quite a few different subjects now, Denise, haven't we? So welcome to the show again. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's a lovely day here in Malmesbury. Yep, it's not raining.
The sun is shining behind you, isn't it?
Yeah, it looks lovely. Yeah, it's a nice day.
And you were just talking about holidays. So you're going on holidays soon. And now that's something that can really, really put stress on people and give a lot of anxiety.
It's funny you should say that, talking about going on journeys, because I had a client in earlier and we were talking about actually her driving here. Yep. And it's all about travel. She was getting really worried about getting here, like her anxiety. She was so worried about it all. But I said to her before, okay, I said, you've got a sat nav, right? So you put the postcode into the sat nav and follow the sat nav. Trust the sat nav. Yeah. And I said, and then we'll talk about it. I said, your mind is the same. Your mind's got this sat nav, isn't it? So when you're like going on holidays, you know what you're going to do. Like you're going to drive to the airport, you're going to put your luggage in, you go do this, you go do it. So you know what you're going to do. Yeah. But the thing that brings up the anxiety is we actually doubt our ability to follow that little internal sat nav to get us there. And sometimes it's just trusting it. It's just trusting that actually you are able to drive to the airport. You are able to queue up and put your luggage in, you know, these kind of things. So when we were talking about it, I said, sometimes we worry about worrying, and that builds up the anxiety. I says, if you try and sometimes just trust yourself, trust that what you've actually put in place is going to work, then, you know, the anxiety is lessened, you know.
And I think it's often very much about the unknown, isn't it? So it's just doing something different sometimes, and it takes you completely out of your comfort zone, and you then start panicking about everything that goes into that process. So what would your top tip be, apart from sort of trusting yourself? What would your top tip be for when you're doing things that you're going to be challenged and be out of your comfort zone be?
Did you see the big? I was thinking, did you see there was a thing on the TV last night, that Wim Hof thing when they were jumping in the frozen lake and whatever? it's all about, sometimes people worry that they doubt their ability. They have that fear of the unknown because they're not quite sure what's going to happen. They're not quite sure if it's going to be good or if it's going to be bad. Yeah, because if you don't know what's going to happen, you go, oh, I'm not going to do that because I don't know, because you don't have the control. And I watched that thing last night when they were jumping into the frozen river or whatever, right? And some of them were like, "Yep, I'm just going to do it." And one chap who's the weatherman, he cried before he even went in. I was like, "You haven't even got in the water yet." Yep. And Wim Hof kept on saying, "It's all about your mindset. It's all about your mindset." Right. So when people are taking themselves out of the comfort zone and doing something that's very different, it's all about where you kind of visualize where you're going to go, what's going to happen at the end.
Yeah.
So it's actually saying to yourself, I'm going to be calm. It's about calming yourself down and really kind of focusing on one bit at a time. I'll do this, and then I'll do this, and then I'll do
But
this.
often you can see yourself almost what is going, you can predict almost what is going to happen, which is not true. So I do
No, I
this
don't.
with height. I can
Yeah,
see myself falling off the cliff, even though that's not going to happen. And then you panic and then you have that
yeah.
anxiety. So
Because you
it's
think,
stopping, like you said,
yeah,
calming yourself down. And
yeah. We all think, oh my God, I'm going to fall, or this is going to happen, or that's going to happen. And actually, it's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. Like, but this is the biggest thing. We put on all these bad things that, oh, if you, the thing that was on last night of the program, they had to abseil face down, yep, and kind of run down the cliff. But the best bit was, I was like, hang on a minute, they can't fall, right? They're not going to be able to fall because the rope was that tight that holding them, right? That every time they moved, the rope just let that little bit go. So there was no way on this earth they were going to fall. But they had it in their head, I could fall, right? So it was
yeah,
an irrational thought. So if they kind of be logical about some things, it's actually going, but that's never going to happen. It's sometimes you have to flip it. You have to flip the thought in your mind and say, all right, then, if this is what I'm thinking might happen bad, what would be the best that can happen? What's going to be the good bit? What would be the most amazing thing that could happen? So
so I'm
sometimes,
gonna have to adapt that when we're doing. So we're doing Everest Base Camp in about 3 weeks,
yeah,
and I am absolutely petrified about walking over those little bridges at really quite a high level. So I'm going to have to really focus myself and get into that place of what will happen when I get across that.
yeah,
And
it's focusing on the other side.
yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of like,
yeah,
when you see people walking on glass or in the fire walk and stuff like
yeah,
that, you don't have to focus on what's underneath because then actually you'll be thinking, oh my God, my feet are on fire, or I'm going to break my feet under the glass, I'm going to cut my feet. You focus on what's in front of you because then that's where your mindset is. So when you're going across these bridges, yeah, but the little things that maybe move a bit, I'm just going to focus on getting across. I'm just going to get there, and then the anxiety kind of goes because you've got a goal then, haven't you?
yeah. Well, that's
And
a
you have
really
to go.
good way of thinking of it, actually, because I have done walking on glass, and you're right. You're just focusing on getting to the end of it,
Yeah,
and
you're
your
not focused
mindset
on
is
the
just
glass
on the
underneath
end
your feet.
goal.
Yeah,
No,
if you focused on the glass underneath your feet, you'd be sitting thinking, I'm going to cut my feet. Oh my God, this is
yeah,
going to hurt. I'm going to have blood, and that'd be all the real, you'd catastrophize it all. Whereas when you're doing these kind of things, you're not focused on that. You're focused on, I'm going to get to the end, and I'm going to do this. And that's a huge difference. So when you're doing your,
how about small little goals? Because we've spoken about people who have a real anxiety about leaving the house after lockdown. What would you say about top tips around that anxiety? How can we focus on small little steps to be able to start going out again and just becoming part of society again and being comfortable with that?
there's a brilliant little trick that I get clients to do. It's just to kind of get the senses and everything to work. I do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So we've got 5 senses. So you might say, right, okay, look around you and find 5 things that you can see. Yep. 4 things that you can hear. 3 things that you can touch. 2 things that you can smell and 1 thing that you can taste. Yep. So you're going through all your senses. And by doing that, what you're doing is you're becoming so much more aware of the environment that you're in. So when people say they're really afraid to go out, I say, well, what to do is make it a game. Yep, make it, play it as a game. So you're going out to your front door. Like as you when you're out in that tiny little bit, maybe your garden, do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like see what you've got. Now you might have to go a bit further to maybe say 5 things that you can see, or or 5 things that you can even smell. You can do it in any kind of order, and it gets them in control then because they've got a purpose to go out. They're not just going out for nothing. They're actually taking their mind away from I'm outside and I'm going walking, because what they're doing is they're focusing on, um, you know, what's my senses. See, Wafa says it's really brilliant, isn't it? The senses exercise when you're stressed. Yeah, doing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It is brilliant because all it does, you really have to hone in on what's around you, and it gets people out walking in simple things because to them it's like I'm going out and I'm going to play a game, like because
I
there's
think
no
it's
anxiety.
your kind of ability to switch off about the scariness and just
Yeah,
focusing on something else, isn't it?
yeah, exactly.
How can
You
we
just
adapt that? Because I know a lot of people at the moment are really worried about social situations and being part of big groups and going maybe back to going to the theatre or even just going out for dinner and it's a busy place. How can we adapt that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to those situations as well?
you can. I mean, you don't have to do it. There's when you're looking at things, people do it loads of different ways. Some people do 3, 3, 3. So you think of 3 things that you can touch, 3 things that you can see, 3 things that you can smell. Yep. So it's all about bringing this awareness. This is it. Because once you've got that awareness of your surroundings, you're feeling a bit more in control. It gives you that sense of feeling secure because you know what's there. Like if people don't like it if they don't know what's about. Like so, if you go into things like, say, you go into the theatre, the biggest thing for people is, well, there are people sitting next to them, or see people sitting in front, or people sitting behind. Right. The only thing that you've got to be honest that you're in control of is where you sit in yourself. You're not in control of the person next to you, and you're not, or front and back. You're not in control of any of them because it's a bit your simple environment making it as calm as you want it to make it. So, in a sense, it's blocking everybody else out, going, well, they're there, they're there, they're there, there. This is my little space. I'm going to make it the best I can make it, you know. So you have your
I love
drink.
that.
Yeah.
What
It's
about if
pretty
you're a
simple.
little bit of a so I'm always worried that other people are okay and I'm look at myself last. So I will make sure that everybody around me is okay before I'm okay. What can I do to make that space easier and
And the thing
kind
is,
of
when we do that, when we're always making sure everybody else is okay, right? What we're actually saying in a kind of very subconscious way, that if you put everybody first, that you're actually saying that you deserve to be last, but you don't deserve to be last. You deserve to be first, like everybody else. Yep. So sometimes it's not being a bit selfish. It's being selfless by saying, I'm going to put myself first. Because you've got to be honest, if you're looking after everybody else and they're so used to you looking after them, like if you become ill, if you get really anxious, or, for some reason something happens to you and you're no longer there to look after them, then actually, who's going to look after them? You see what
yeah,
I
so it's
mean?
like the oxygen mask in airplanes, isn't it? You
Exactly.
need to look after
You put it
yourself.
on yourself first and then
Yeah,
you
yeah.
give it to somebody else. But
But it's
people
sometimes
always think,
very hard to practice, isn't it? Because you're
yeah,
looking after other people and you don't think about yourself sometimes.
no, we don't. We always think we need to make sure everybody else is fine, and then we look after ourselves. But we have to think about it in an opposite way, going, right, if I'm 100% or how I want to be, then I know that I'm in the best position to look after everybody else. If
Yeah.
I'm not 100%, then I'm not in that best position. And it's like anything, isn't it? If you're not the best person you could be, like I wouldn't be able to do my job, you wouldn't be able to do yours. So it's not about, focusing on, I just do it for myself. You're not, you're doing it for everybody else. So it's all about taking care of yourself and doing the simple things that actually make you feel good.
That's really good. And I love the fact that you said about simple things as well, because a lot of what we've been talking about in this kind of little live shows that we've done with you recently is all about the small steps and the small wins that you do along the way.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes, like you said, if you're focusing on the massive picture, wouldn't go out because you get worried about being worried, and then the anxiety goes up, and
Yeah.
you're just completely out of your comfort zone, and it becomes completely overwhelming. But
Definitely.
the amount of people I've spoken to in the last couple of weeks are really finding just the environment that we're in, the transition period that we're in, of being hybrid, being face to face, being in big groups, really overwhelming. So, what sort of hints and tips would you say about that? We've spoken a lot about little golden nuggets, but what else can we do to kind of calm ourselves down and get to that better space emotionally?
I think at this moment in time, we're in that kind of, I think we're still in that bit of unknown. We're not quite sure what to do. We're not quite sure. Like I'm going on holiday, but I'm like, do I have to test before I go? Do I have to wear masks? What do I do? Or how does it work? Whereas before, you would just pack your suitcase, get on a plane, and not worry about it. But now you're sitting thinking, like, what happens then? And then you have to make sure that your travel insurance has got COVID, whatever on it. So there's all these different things that come into it. So we're in a real kind of a period of, it is still in that kind of unknown, massive transition. But I think it's actually seeing it and going, we want to, everybody wants to get back to leading what they would class as their normal life. Yeah. And saying, well, what does this normal life, what was it? What was the bits that I'm missing that I used to do, but now I'm not doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get some of my clients to sit and think and go, all right, what things are you not doing? It could be like, well, I'm not going out, I'm not seeing my friends, or I'm not going out to see my friends. They might come to me, but I'm not keen to go out because I don't feel comfy. So it's a case of, right, well, why not you go to their house? Make the real simple, small things. But it's all about saying to yourself, what do I want my life to look like? Like, because we're all different. Like, what things do I want in it that's not in it? What things were in it that I want, all these, bring it back. And then saying to yourself, right, what one thing can I do today that would take me there? What's the one thing will I do today that'll kind of push me that bit forward? Yep. And it's all, and as we said, it is all about the small stuff, the small steps, massive, massive small steps. Because if you try and do a big thing, right, it's never going to work because it's too
Yeah.
big.
Yeah, and
So,
Bob has just come in with a really good comment, actually. She said, it's important to be kind and consider others, but also it's important that all adults are responsible for their feelings
exactly.
and
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah.
And that brings me on actually to children, because I've a lot of children at the moment have been really, really kind of emotionally disconnected almost through the pandemic. And I know because Jamie is going out and doing talks and things in schools again. And he said some of the times when he goes out, they're not interacting, they kind of got a blank face. So if we have friends and people that we are worried about that kind of feel a little bit unengaged, they're not maybe making as much contact as they used to, and you're worried about either a child or a friend or your family, what would you say to them to kind of do and to be able to help them to come back into a life after the pandemic, and how we can cope with those situations?
I think the big thing is you've got to communicate with them. You've got to talk to them, right? And it's not just talking and kind of dismissing what they say. It's also about listening to what they're saying. Yeah, especially, I mean, when you get lots of young people, for some, at the minute, they're like, oh, I'm not, they don't want to go out. They don't want to be near people. They'd rather have this square screen all the time because they feel safe. Yeah,
Yeah.
they've got a barrier between themselves and everything else. So you've got to be honest, on a square screen, you can be anything you want. You could say anything because you've got a barrier. But as soon as somebody's there in front of you, the barrier's gone. So that fear that, oh my God, that person's there in front of them is there. So as Jamie says, when he goes out and they don't engage, they don't want to engage because they've got that big, massive, sometimes it's a fear, but also they don't know how to. They don't know how to engage because that's been taken away from them. The only way that they do know how to engage is through a square screen. So it's all about having that communication skill and breaking down the barrier and saying to them, right, okay, we're in a room, we're going to do this stuff. And it's quite good to kind of, I always get them to do things like do a worry bucket right at the beginning of a session. Just write everything down that's worrying you, right? And we're going to chuck it in the bucket in the nicest possible. Just throw it in the bucket. Yeah. So, and they all do it when it's young people. They all have to aim for the bucket and put it in. They're not allowed to just go chuck. They have to aim for it. And that really kind of, it's a real simple thing to do, but it gets people engaging, going, oh, you missed. Oh, how did that? You know, that kind of thing. So you're breaking down the barriers very quickly. But it is all about...
It's a really good top tip, because by doing the bucket or something like that, you actually get into doing something together and people start interacting.
Yeah, it's a physical thing.
Away from the situation that's going on around them.
Yeah, because the thing is, people at the minute, their interaction with each other, you know, they're either on phones or on screen, whatever. So the interaction's not there. So when you break it down into something that's a real kind of physical, you have to do it. You have to use your hands. You have to, you know, use your arms. You have to talk. You have to write it down. Then you're breaking down lots and lots of barriers. And then people do start to interact with each other. So it makes it easier. And especially, even families do it, all these kind of things. It's all about finding things that people can do together to break down the barrier, and then listening to what people are saying, and taking on board what they're saying, you know, have that active listening. And it makes a huge difference, especially to young people, because I think out of everybody, they're probably the ones that are suffering more, because, you know, they're just, their whole life was kind of just blown up.
They kind of, I think, as well. I mean, we all got used to being at home. We all got used to being on the screen like we are now. And we've all adapted to that. And they have adapted maybe completely to that. And they just think that life is just on the screen. And I think that's so important, to break down those barriers, like you said, in various sort of small exercises that you can do. And also for a friend, I think we can adapt that as well to maybe, you know, if a friend doesn't want to go out, maybe just say, should we just go for a walk one night and just listen? Because that is so hard at the moment. I know a lot of people are really sort of frightened about and really anxious about going out again. And we become comfortable with being at home. You know, we all have, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you got to be honest. You want your house to be that safe place, don't you? That you can go home, shut the door, shut the curtains, whatever, and that's it. You're there. And that's the place where you go, oh, yes, thank God. So we've got used to having that place as a kind of comfort zone. But now it's a case of, you know, life's out there. And there's loads of things, masses and masses of opportunities, loads of stuff that you could do. So it's breaking down the barriers and saying to people, you might be taking yourself out your comfort zone, but if we do it short and sweet and small and steady kind of thing, then it'll be easier. Yeah. But the big thing, you know, is talking. Families, you know, people were saying during COVID it was nice because families you didn't have a choice. You had to interact because everybody was in the same space.
Yeah, people go to board games again and all sorts of things, and being out.
But then, you know, are they still doing that, or have they chucked that away and got back to this? I don't know.
I think we kind of in a bit of a transition period, which we spoke about just, you know, earlier. It's a little bit about adapting to finding the time, because I don't know about you, but I find that people have got really busy, and I think it's because we're trying to do everything. And we're not really sure of, you know, how to manage our time anymore, because we've just been at home, and managing the time at home is a lot different from managing time if you're having to commute, picking up children from school, and, you know, all that kind of thing. So it's just a transition period. But I think as well, like you said, respect that maybe from yourself, and it is going to take time, because I know I didn't think that lockdown had affected me as much as it had. And it's only going out to bigger events and things again that I realized, you know what, I don't feel the same as I did before lockdown happened, because I'm a real people person. But it's that little bit of anxiousness of you've forgotten almost what it's like and what to do and how to interact, and then it all
Yeah,
comes
you forget how to have a conversation, don't you? You
yeah.
forget how to talk to people, like what you're supposed to say, how's it supposed to work? You almost want somebody to give you a little list. This is how you do it.
Yeah,
Do this, do this, do this. Because things that were so natural to us have become sort of unnatural, or things that were familiar have become unfamiliar.
but I
So
think
it's
it's
getting back
important
into
as
that.
well. So you've given so many hints and tips and about tools that we can use. So the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I absolutely love that because it takes off the mindset of what you're actually doing when you get anxious, and it brings you back to focusing on something else. But I think also it's just actually, if you speak about it, you're going to notice that a lot of people are feeling the same. So you're not on your own. And
Yeah.
actually, sometimes just by opening up and somebody listening and interacting in that way can really help
Yeah.
you, because you think that you're the only one thinking that, and
And you're
actually
not.
you're
No,
not at all.
there's loads of people.
Yeah,
Masses and masses of people are thinking the same and feeling the same,
yeah,
and even behaving the same, Um, and that's when people realize, oh, it's when people say, oh, you'll think I'm being really silly. And I'm like, no, you're not, because there's about 10 people before you this week have said the same. And they're like, oh, I feel really stupid about this. And I'm like, it's not, it's not silly, it's not stupid. It's actually just natural, it's normal, at the minute, because this is how our minds are working. We're in a bit of a confused state. But it's finding ways to get out of that confused state. And we're all different. We all want to do it differently.
yeah,
And it's how it gives you that kind of, it's just that lovely sense of feeling quite calm, but it's also having that lovely clear head, making sure that how you run your day is a way that works for you, however you're working it. I was saying to my son, he's still working from home 3 days a week. But he says, he feels like he never switches off. And I
yeah,
says, what's the difference from working at home and going to the office? He says, when I go to the office, in the morning, and I've got to walk to the tube station, I get on the underground. So that travel time, he has to switch off because you can't really
yeah,
do much in the underground. So he works in the office, and then the travel time home, he kind of, switches off. But when you're
yeah,
at home, you're there all the time, aren't you? You
yeah,
can be there 24/7. I said, so you have to put things in place when you're at home, that this is my time to start work and this is my time to stop.
yeah.
Um, and if you're going to sit at your desk and whatever to start work, then maybe, put some on that this is your work clothes and these are not my work clothes, all these kind of things. So it makes a huge difference.
I think it really does, and I've been noticing that commuting into the office where we are now. That I did, for so many months we haven't had that, and actually, that 20 minutes gives me a chance to switch off,
It
and the
does, doesn't it?
closed, and and
Yeah.
it's a massive difference. So it is all about the small little steps, I think, to getting back into where we call usual society and gatherings and things again. And I'm absolutely hopeful that we are going to go back to a much
We
better
will.
place, because we
Yeah.
are interacting in a different way, and we also, I think, have learned so much through the pandemic, and we learned as well to be supportive of each other, I think, and that's the most important thing. Like we were saying, talk to somebody, listen to somebody,
Yeah.
and just take the time to find out, if you're worried about somebody, give them a helping hand and see, because I'm sure
Yeah.
you're not on your own. That's a big message, I think, to get
I
out
think
there.
that's the big thing. Yeah. People need to know that there's loads and loads of help out there.
Yeah,
And whatever you're thinking, it's not silly, it's not stupid, like it's how you're thinking. So it's important. And
yeah,
that's, when people realize actually, yeah, it is important. Because if it's something that's bothering you, then it is important. So, talk to somebody, go for a walk with a friend and have a chat, anything. But if it's important, then it matters because everybody matters.
yeah. absolutely everybody matters. No, Denise, it's been absolutely lovely talking to you this lunchtime. And I think you have given so much information for people that really you can take away. And we've had some lovely comments as well coming up. So if you're watching this on replay and you want to ask a question to Denise or any hints and tips, just put replay and put your question, because I'm sure Denise will be more than happy to answer that. And on that note, I think we're going to say thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day, Denise. And I hope you're going to enjoy your holiday as well, because I think we've got another live maybe after your holiday. So thank you so much for joining me for all these lovely little 5 top tips from the Mind Reset.
Thank you for having me. It's been fab.
Oh, it's been lovely. Take care now. Have a lovely afternoon.
Okay then. Bye.